Hello, and thank you for joining us today for Tiger Talk. I'm joined today with Brian Jones, high school or secondary level principal, and Amanda Peterson, our assistant principal in charge of our alternative programs and our technical programs. So thank you for joining today for conversation. We're going to talk about a number of things today, but one of the things we're going to really focus on more is a conversation about our new CTI Center that recently opened up, and Brian and Amanda are here to share a little bit about what's going on out there. The center is actually open, so we'll talk about that. Like we've been doing the last few Tiger Talks, though, I want to start with a few general announcements, just share some things going on in our district. We always have a lot of things taking place. I like to share with you what's going on. First thing I want to share is we have an early dismissal coming up. November 22nd, we have a noon dismissal for students, and our staff are going to have some professional development that afternoon. So staff are going to be around the day, but students will be dismissed at noon. That's a day just prior to Thanksgiving break. One thing that happened recently that we thought was some data we thought was really interesting is Preston Stenstrud, the city, he shared some annual information about water usage at the high school. Brian, I don't know if you've seen this yet either, but
I have not.
Talking about the irrigation system and the pump. So there's the pond in between like the fields and the school there that we're pumping water out of. This year, between the city and the high school, we have pumped over 10 million gallons, 10,443,000 gallons of water were used. Combined, that cost, if we use the water through MMU, would have been about $77,000 for that water. So our savings alone for the public school was just almost $47,000, where our cost and share of the electricity to run the pump was $1,700. So huge cost savings in that pump. So people have asked before about watering those fields and keeping those green. And certainly when we put the new sod in the practice field this year, we were pumping a lot of water and watering that. So I thought that was just good data to share. In total, that station has pumped over 57 million gallons of water over the last 6 years for a cost savings of over $412,000 to the taxpayers versus paying for utility and water for that. So it's been a good program and a good addition for our district to keep our grounds in good shape and usable for our kids and save money for taxpayers too. So I wanted to share that with you. We have Project Success after school program that is in full swing that started recently in mid-October. That's for grades K through 6. In that program, if you hear someone talking about that one, wonder what that is, teachers are reteaching. There's a little bit of new instruction. There's social emotional learning taking place and teaching life skills. So a lot of extra skills instruction for students taking place after school in that program. Emily Carroll's one of our instructional coaches. She also runs that program for us, maintaining and developing programming for students that is consistent across the whole district. Each month with that program, they also have a theme, so there's some thematic instruction just to make it a little more fun for the kids and for the teachers, that program too. So that's been a really good program for us. At Southview Elementary, our 4th graders are doing book battles again this year. So that's a competition where they create teams of 4 students. The students, they find some friends or something to join in their team. They read through a list of books that's provided from the Media Center, and then they pair up against other teams and have to answer questions about the books. And the team that answers the most questions correctly, they get some points, they win this competition. So that's been a fun event taking place. 4th graders are getting near the end of their competition. 3rd graders just kind of getting going with theirs. So little staggered start times with those. We talked last month about a BAR grant. So it's a Building Assets Reducing Risks program. We've been doing that at the high school for a few years.
Yep.
And Southview Elementary and Middle School recently received some large grants to implement that program at those schools. Southview recently had their first training on that. That happened on November 7th. A group of piloting teachers, which includes 2 teachers from each of the 3 grade levels at Southview, along with the SEL teachers and our principal, Peter Thor. They had attended a training that was put on by the BAR coach. They come down, train our staff how to implement these practices in the school. That was really well received, and staff are excited to get started and going with that. Southview also has a guest coming. Kao Kailia Yang is making a visit to Southview. She is a Hmong American writer, filmmaker, and teacher. She's going to read one of her children's books that she's authored to the entire student body and then participate in a Q&A session. And then they're going to do that at the middle school theater, so they can do the whole student body at once. It'll be a fun activity for our kids to get to meet her and get to have an author actually be there with their book and participating with the kids. Middle school, they have a project that's continuing. I think we've talked about before, but just to update with that, it's the Kindness Closet. It's a program where some students with special needs organize this. It's a life skills class and some social skills classes. They learn skills like organizing, cleaning, stocking, helping staff and families as they're running that Kindness Closet. And the students are paired with some general education peers making some meaningful connections as they're running that program. It's been a really positive program at the middle school. They have it open different times throughout the school week and then like on conference nights so parents can stop and get things. So if you have questions about that, I certainly encourage you to reach out to the middle school and learn more about that program. High school always has a lot of good things to share as well. We recently wrapped up our first term, and Brian's good at wrapping up, looking at data and comparing how students are doing. As we're implementing some of these changes, BAR specifically is one we've tracked very closely. Looking at the academic performance from this last quarter, students are doing really well compared to last year. So some data that he shared, that's going to be shared at our board meeting here coming up, I want to share with you guys. Percentage of students passing classes in all grades has improved over the 3-week and 6-week grading periods from the previous year, so that's exciting. 9th grade students are passing classes at higher rates than the previous 2 cohorts were, so we look at average data over years with that. 10th grade students are passing classes at nearly equal to where they were last time at this year, so that's encouraging with that group. Our 11th graders have improved by over 8% when compared to 6-week average and scoring higher than the same point last year when they were 10th grade students, so that's good. That means we're seeing that growth that we're looking for. And our seniors have improved their 6-week passing rates. However, still passing rates lower than where they were juniors. So we got, with seniors seeing some growth and some room for improvement yet too. So it's good data to look at. Also at the high school recently on Halloween, our Honor Society hosted a blood drive. There were 68 students and staff that donated Gift of Life with almost 70 high school students signed up to give blood. So that's really exciting program for those kids something they do every year and good community outreach project for them. We had another visit recently. Taher is our food service provider for the schools. Every once in a while, they'll send a chef down, so a corporate chef comes down and visits. They visited our elementary school, and he provided some fruits and did some things with the kids there. And at the high school, he was there November 7th through 9th. Working with FACS classes, they prepared a special meal for that Thursday that week. The meal consisted of seasoned pork or chipotle chicken nachos with fresh pico de gallo, and we've got a lot of positive comments on that. It was well received. The kids enjoy that when we do that day.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's like a restaurant meal at the school that day. It's part of their regular Taher meal. So fun events taking place. We're here to talk about CTI today, though. So I want to ask you guys a few questions, just kind of learning about those. CTI. Let's start with what does CTI stand for? We have acronyms for everything in education.
Sure.
So we have CTE and we have CTI. CTE, when we say that, it's talking about career and technical education. Here in Marshall, we have the CTI, which when we talk about that, that's our Career and Technical Institute.
Right.
And so that's actually the site that we just opened.
Right. So the new site is a CTI, is what we're going to refer to that as the Career and Technical Institute. CTE is the overall programming that happens in multiple sites. Maytech, high school, middle school all have CTE classes. Certainly, so those introduction things to build them to the more advanced things that are taking place at CTI.
Absolutely. And also includes like business classes. It's not just our shop classes, but also covers a few different departments at the high school.
Right. So we've added some very specific programming at this new location. When we've added that, when we expanded that, can you guys, one of you, talk a little bit about why we chose to expand CTE? I mean, I know we hear a lot of comparison, maybe Votech school that happened years ago.
Yep.
But what was the thought there as we processed that whole project?
Really, I think it was working with folks in our community, our EDA, working with the Department of Economic Development, and just seeing where were some of those high demand occupations that we were struggling in our community and in Southwest Minnesota to get employees in for those employers in those career fields. And that's really kind of where the discussion started several years ago, and then talking about how could we maybe support that for not a short-term solution, but maybe a longer-term solution, and how could we get students interested in those career opportunities and pursue those beyond high school.
Yeah. And we had a lot of conversation about knowing that there's a workforce need in a community that's huge. And we see and we see it in the schools ourselves. We put out a job posting. We don't get a lot of applicants for different positions. We're hearing that from a lot of employers and saying, why don't kids go into these fields that we have so much need for? So that kind of sparked that conversation. Well, we have all these things, and we do have a lot of things, but really being able to build deeper with some classes and encourage kids to see some of the careers and opportunities that exist right in Marshall.
Absolutely. How do we keep our students here instead of leaving and going to other communities, and then we struggle for employees?
Right, right.
I think one thing that's important to share too is it was a big group that kind of worked through this. The ideas were there. It was a few years ago, like Brian said, that the idea of how can we expand, how can we do more. But we've also had the CTI, the summits, and that brought community members right in face to face talking to us. What are the needs? What does that look like? Having the EDA there. Those partnerships have been a big part of all of this as well.
Absolutely. I know when I think back to when I was in high school, and probably same for you guys, when we were thinking about careers and thinking about what happens after high school, we were very strongly encouraged to go to a 4-year university. That's the only way you're going to make a good living. And we've learned that's just not the case. Well, there are many jobs and many students that is a really great fit, and we want to encourage kids to do that, but there are many other opportunities that exist too. So how do we also prepare kids for alternative tracks to a 4-year university?
Yep.
Yeah. So you mentioned we've been working on this for a while. How long have we been having these conversations? It seems like time flies. And then we throw COVID in there too.
Yeah, I feel like for at least the past 3 years, you mentioned the summits and that opportunity just for, we know school, but we don't necessarily always understand the employment side of things. So those summits were just such a good opportunity for us to sit down and just listen to what people in Southwest Minnesota, those employers, were saying their needs are. And from there, we kind of started the brainstorming process on what is possible and realistic for us to do as a school district to help try to better meet those needs.
Right.
You know, I think some of it started even longer back when Maytech brought in the welding and the CNA back then, and it just kind of got to a point where we needed to start doing more. And so the last 5 years being in Maytech in my role, that's when the conversations kind of started, but the last 3 years is where they really took off.
Right.
And it's been exciting to watch it unfold and where we're at today.
And I would even say beyond that, I remember when MECLA, our alternative school at the mall, when that moved to its current location, and we started partnering with daycares for oversight, and we kind of did that as a school district on our own. That was in an effort to try to meet community needs of an industry that we were in short supply with here in our region and community.
Absolutely. And you talk about community partnerships, and that was really a big revelation, I think, as we had these conversations, is we know that this is important, but we know we need partners. So people like, and I'm going to name some, and I know I'm going to miss people, but thinking about the chamber and thinking about EDA and thinking about DEED, having them come down and talk to us about really where are those workforce needs, thinking about just city government and officials there. They've been great partners with us and encouraging, say, okay, here, how about this, and can we do this, and hey, let's partner together, and then going to the business community and saying, business owner, what do you need, and what can we do to help prepare kids for that? So that's been huge, and the outreach with that has really helped us to put this program together. So
I think about the number of opportunities to have conversations with our private partners in the community over the last 3 years, and they're not specific to what we're doing at CTI. It's a larger conversation and really about exposing students to opportunities that exist and allowing those businesses to come into our schools and talk and present, and then at the same time allowing our students to go out and tour and see what those businesses do. That gets kids excited about what's available and what they could possibly look at for their future.
right. Well,
And the next level of that is we've brought our staff out.
Right.
Our staff are a part of the puzzle too. And so we've had our staff go into the businesses. We've had externships, different opportunities for staff to learn more. So when they're in the classrooms with the students, they can share information because they know it now.
Right.
So
I know we had, for instance, 4 teachers in the summer go and spend a day each at ADM, and they came back excited about opportunities, and they just said, we never knew what opportunities exist. And so they really are linked to the students and getting the kids excited about the possibilities that exist for the future.
Right. And the other piece where that's so valuable is, in addition to the teachers seeing the opportunities that exist, when a kid says, when am I ever going to use this? I mean, we hear that all the time as a teacher, right?
Yep.
So here's where you're going to use that. Let's take you to this business and let's show you, here's where you're applying those math concepts, or here's where you're going to use, these different literacy concepts or something like that to make this job happen. Really real life examples that we can't duplicate in a classroom. So that's great. So we've talked about a lot of community partnerships and a lot of conversations building it. We've picked 3 very specific areas to start with. You guys want to talk a little bit about what we've chosen and why?
Sure. So we started with 3 areas or programs. We started with welding, CNA. Both of those are they were in place at Maytech, and so they were kind of one of, I think, an easy opportunity for us to build on and move out to the CTI Center. And then we added to that some advanced automotive classes. So go ahead.
So really kind of those larger concepts, so healthcare, manufacturing, and then transportation, and then we sort of drilled down into those areas that Amanda talked about.
Right. And certainly, well, those are the 3 classes for right now. We had to get the center together and get it opened, but we're not stopping. We're certainly not done. Our next steps include some expansion, thinking about expansion. That's one of the beautiful things about the site that we purchased is we have more room than just for 3 things. We can expand, and there's plenty of room that we can do other things that our space limitations at the high school and certainly at Maytech wouldn't allow us the opportunities to do. So talk a little bit about some of those future expansion ideas.
You know, and these are in the brainstorming phase, so it's early on, but certainly talking about opportunities for construction trades, and we know that's another big area. Healthcare expansion beyond just CNA. Well, we get a lot of kids, students that want to pursue medical careers, and so I think that's important, working with Avera as one of our partners in terms of just understanding what opportunities do exist here in Marshall and in Southwest Minnesota, that you don't have to leave and go to Twin Cities or Sioux Falls if you want a career in medicine.
Right.
And there's more to just the doctor-nurse side of it, and that's the nice thing with some of the possible future classes that we've kind of talked about with the Health Institute, bringing in that there's more to healthcare than just nurses and doctors. So that's a little piece of our brainstorming puzzle too. So.
Right. So, well, CNA is the class that's happening right now. It might in the future be a medical terminology. It might be a pharmacology. It might be something else. You know, there's so many things that do exist that we can teach in that medical lab.
Absolutely.
Healthcare is so large, and it just encompasses so many occupations that, and it's stable. It's not as subject to economic swings perhaps as other areas. And there's always going to be that need and that infrastructure, and so we feel like there's always going to be opportunities for our students.
Right. Right. Absolutely. So as we think about how we expand, you know, we said we're brainstorming it. How do we make those decisions about which ones come in next? There's a lot of factors that take place.
You know, one of the things we often talk about is we can offer all the classes in the world, but if students aren't going to take them. So one of the things we do also look at is, you know, what are our students interested in? What are they registering for? The high school has a registration process that kind of gives us that idea. We've surveyed students in the past too. We do it sometimes even with our summer courses to see where does that interest lie, because we could offer the class and no one signs up for it, then that's not going to help us. So I know we do some of that legwork for some data and understanding.
In addition to that, continuing to really go back to the very beginning of our process and working with our local and our state partners and in our EDA and our economic or DEED, those folks who work in it all the time and can sort of project out what are those labor market trends look like for the next decade. And then we really kind of start that process all over, working there in, like Amanda said, with our students to gauge their interest.
Right. And then, of course, once we find where there's a need and our students are interested, the other missing piece is who can teach it.
Yep.
And that's not, some of these fields are so specific, and to find someone that meets criteria that the state requires to have and has an interest and is willing to come work with high school kids. I mean, there's a lot of things that come into play there.
It's a trifecta.
So it definitely is, yeah. So something that we continue to work on. So
I do think the state is starting to understand that and provide us some relief in terms of, in some of these career and technical areas, opportunities for people to teach who maybe don't have that traditional teaching degree and pedagogy and background, that track. And so I think there's opportunities. I know we recently had a meeting and talked about, well, who could maybe do some of these things, and opportunity for some partnerships, some volunteerism perhaps, if there's people maybe who have spent their working career and have retired but but yet still are looking for that fulfillment and want to work. And so we're talking a lot about those type of opportunities and how can we reach out to some of those folks that we know in the community to just be able to learn from their experience and the amount of knowledge that they have.
Yeah.
So
that leads me into our next question. There's some challenges that still remain. You guys want to talk a bit about some of the challenges? 'Cause we're meeting almost weekly to talk about different things on this program.
well,
You could start.
Staffing, obviously that's kind of where it begins. But some of these areas, to train people and try to expose them to what the field is like, and we're not. I don't think our goal is to always make it where they're ready to finish our program and step right in. But hopefully, we've exposed them to more of the career where they've gotten excited about it, so they can continue with that next step. But we will have some students who are ready to work a part-time job in our certified nursing, or maybe at an auto body shop or manufacturing doing some welding. And so after we figure out that staffing, really our next step for some of these areas is just equipment and materials. And that's where we've been fortunate so far. We've been able to rely on our private businesses in town to number one, advise us on what type of equipment do we need. And then they've just been so generous with their resources, whether it be donation of just money or equipment and time, and so that's really helped. We've received some grants from some of our larger businesses that are in town. They're have a national philanthropic division, and so that's really been beneficial because some of this equipment we just can't support it on a traditional school budget.
Oh, and honestly, some of it are things that we talk about, these very specific programs, and teachers like, I need a whatever. I'm like, I have no idea what that is. So for me to go buy it, you talked to me about a torque wrench the other day. It was a $3,000 item or something for one wrench, and I can't fathom that with the things that I'm familiar with. So it's work, and that's where we need those business partners to help us understand. Here's what they're going to use when they're with us. This is what we need, and then okay, how can we make that happen? So yeah, that's been huge.
Another challenge that I think kind of comes to play a little bit is we want these to be next level, the advanced classes, and so there's not a curriculum specific out there for some of them. We were really fortunate with welding. We do have the Lincoln Electric certification, so there is some guidance and some stuff there. As we really start to dive down to like our automotive class being really specific on things, some of that comes into play where we have to maybe massage our curriculum a little bit to make it so it does become more advanced and they can do some more of that deeper work to really help them understand what they're doing.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about the center specifically because it's open and it's running. Amanda, I'm going to ask you talk a little bit about. Well, first let's share where it's at for if anyone doesn't know where it's at.
Yeah. So it's out on Highway 59. Yeah. It is right across from, if you're familiar, it's right past, if you're driving out of town, you're going to pass Ace Hardware. It's right across from the Runnings corporate office. So an old salvage yard that we purchased and have really fixed up and
kind of gutted it and started over, so it doesn't look anything like it used to look. We've created the space that we need it to be. So we've got the center, and you can't miss it. You drive by. We've got signage up in the front. There's a tiger on the front. We can't open a center and not have a tiger on the front of it. So when did it open?
So the official occupancy day with our students was November 6th. It actually ended up being the first day of our second quarter. Our classes had already started for first quarter, so the students got to experience the transition with us, and they were on site as of our start of our second quarter.
So how does programming work? Let's talk a little about that, because I had people ask me, so if I sign my kid up, they're going to take everything out there, but that's not how this works. This is totally different than something we've done before.
It is, and so Amanda and I, over the past couple of years, have, along with our instructor that's out there, instructors, to just talk about how could that work for a student who's at Marshall High School or at Maytech, and be able to get these classes in along with the other classes that they need to graduate from high school. And so we have students who transfer back and forth throughout the day. We build in a little bit of cushion time for transportation, and so just in terms of the programming and the welding, we focus on some different types of welding. The automotive, we've broken that down. So there's engine performance is at one portion of the day, and currently another time of day is a class called steering, suspension, and brakes. In the second semester, spring semester, we'll run an electronics class. And so some students may start their morning out at the CTI Center and then leave and be at the high school for the rest of the day. There's some students who go there at the beginning of lunch and are there for a while and come back, and then another group of students who end their day, start at the high school and end their day at the CTI Center.
Sure. So students from either the schools can come. What if someone's at a different school? Do we have any students talking to us about that?
So we do. We've actually had an area school resident reach out and say, can you help us? We are interested in this and it just doesn't fit in our schedule. Through working with that school district's superintendent and Jeremy, we had some conversations and we were able to come up with an agreement. It didn't work for the first semester for the student to join us at this time. However, we're looking at maybe the second semester, depending on, there's a lot of moving parts when you have two different districts and credits and classes, but we think that's a great opportunity for our area. And so we are open to those conversations and ideas for helping our students.
So the answer is kind of maybe. So
Maybe.
if they're interested, they need to call and talk to us
Yeah.
and see if we can work that out.
And these are, like Amanda said earlier, these are meant to be advanced classes, so more in-depth study. Our basic classes, so we still teach at Marshall High School, introduction to welding and introduction to automotives. And so that's like, if I don't know a lot, but I take that class and I find that I'm very interested and I've enjoyed it, then explore that next level. So this isn't replacing what high school has offered in the past or at Maytech, but it's trying to enhance and give students the ability to go deeper.
Right.
And I think that's important to mention with, students coming from out of district. If they have no welding experience at all, it's going to be really difficult to just throw them into that welding class. So that's where those conversations, we're open to those ideas, but those conversations with those school districts are really important.
So the last thing I want to talk a little bit about today is we've mentioned partnerships and how that collaboration is so important to us. If someone's watching this and says, boy, I'd really like to know more about that, let's talk a little bit about, first of all, some more about what those partnerships could look like. Well, what kind of things are we looking for? Because, we've certainly received some monetary donations, and that's awesome. Those are certainly very appreciated. But there's lots of other things that people can do too. Why don't you talk a little bit about that and how they would reach us for that?
Sure.
Yeah, so we've been working with our community partnerships. We have a tier system or a leveled system for people who are interested in being sponsors to our programs out there. We've also gotten some grant work that we've put in for and have earned too. So if someone is interested in partnering with us, they can contact the school and we can walk through more of how that tiered system works. We have a donor wall when you walk into the site that we want to honor the people that are in support and helping this take off.
I think about anyone who wants to help. I just think about sort of time, talent, or treasure. And so the month of November on Wednesdays, we've had probably 12 to 15 businesses in speaking to our students. They sign up. They know what's coming ahead of time. That's been great. We'll do a career expo, sort of job fair at Marshall High School in February. So if you're interested in that, give the high school a call, give Maytech a call, and would like to have a booth where you can just get in front of students, and we'll get them in front of all of our students. And really, that's a great way. Guest speakers and come into classes and be able to just talk with class. So it's not just all about donating money, but partnerships look differently and can come in a lot of different ways. And we really are valuing those community partnerships. And so if you are like what you're hearing as you watch this, and would be interested, give us a call and we'll see
Absolutely.
how we might be able to work together.
The idea is really building that experience for kids to show them here are opportunities that exist in town, here are opportunities not just in Marshall, but in our region, and let's learn more about that. If you're running a business and you say, boy, I would love to give tours, or I'd like to host some staff, or I'd love to get in a classroom and just talk to kids. We like that too. So all those kinds of things. If you've got an idea we haven't mentioned, give us a call. We can talk about that too.
We'll also get a lot of folks who will want to come in during our lunch hour so they can see kids. They'll set up sort of a table, and so we just kind of expose kids to those types of careers as well. And so it can look a lot of different ways, and we're excited for those opportunities and open to ideas that our community has.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you both for joining. I appreciate you being here today. I know on the screen they're showing some pictures of the CTI Center as well. So we're excited to show that to you guys as well. And we are hosting an open house on December 12th. It's going to be in conjunction with a chamber after hours event. So December 12th in the evening, we're going to have some hors d'oeuvres, some snacks, some beverages out there. I encourage you to stop by and actually see it in person, walk through, and we'd love to give you a tour that night and talk to you more that evening as well. So thank you for joining us this month for Tiger Talk, and we'll see you again next month.